to my channel. Today I want to talk about everything Chain of Gold. Yes, I just completed this and I have so many thoughts, so let's get right into it. Okay, so if you are new to the Shadowhunter world, then this is going to be a little overwhelming for you because there are so many different families and so many different characters for you to understand. So we have the Carstairs family, the Herondale's family, the Blackthorn's family, the Fairchild's family, and I could just keep going on. But the thing is that each of these families have a bunch of kids, and then there are a bunch of cousins and siblings, and then there are the actual parents, and then there's like the relatives, and it just keeps going on and on. So there are a lot of characters to get into if you want to read this book, and I myself found it a little bit overwhelming in the beginning because I just couldn't understand for at least the first 200 pages who was in whose family and who is related to whom. It's just so difficult to keep up, and I literally had to Shadowhunter wiki on Google to get like a family tree hierarchy and then understand who is related to whom. And I think that's a bigger problem even if you know the Shadowhunter world, because you want to know whose daughter Cordelia is, or you want to know whose son James is, and just so you could relate to like their parents, because they form the source of the story for like different series. So yeah, it's a beautiful world that Cassie has created, but I must say it's overwhelming and it is huge. Shadowhunter is a huge world, so if you're getting into it, be warned. Now, about Chain of Gold. So yes, you can read this book if you have not read any of the other Shadowhunter series. So if you've not read the Mortal Instruments, not read the Infernal Devices, not read the Dark Artifices, or any of the extra novellas that came out, you can still read Chain of Gold, but it's going to be a little bit confusing because there are characters that will definitely come in this book that you may or may not have heard of, and there are certain sequences that relate to the previous books, so it might throw you off a little bit, but I would still recommend it even if you haven't read the other books. It's not like you have no context whatsoever, because this is a whole separate story in itself following a whole bunch of new characters, so you're not going to get totally lost. But it would be good if you did know what happened in the past or what was going to happen in the future, so you could relate to where this book comes in and where it actually fits, because this is ideally a sequel for the Infernal Devices, but it's a prequel for the Dark Artifices. So it's a mid in between, and if you've read both, then you would be able to connect the dots. Otherwise, it's still okay. You can still read this book and then read the other series, and you would still feel like, you know, that the story keeps going on. So yeah, that's a good thing about the book. Now, the plot, the story, how much did I like this? Let me give this straight up. I am a huge fan of the Dark Artifices. Like nothing has beat the Dark Artifices for me so far. I just loved getting into the whole Blackthorn world. I think the Blackthorn family is going to be like my favorite family now, because I've not come across a family that's going to beat them at all. And I loved Emma and Julian, and the whole plot in itself just kept going on and going on. There was so much of depth in the Dark Artifices, so even if you miss like 2 chapters, you get lost, because there's so much happening, so much is like put in that it's like amazing. So if you're like totally new to the Shadowhunter world, I'd recommend you start with the Infernal Devices, then go to the Dark Artifices, and then read this. Now, I am not a fan of the Mortal Instruments at all. I did not like Clary. I did not like any of the characters in the Mortal Instruments series. Maybe I just didn't like the whole new generation of the Shadowhunters, because the Mortal Instruments takes place in the current future, and that probably was not my cup of tea. What I did like about this is the fact that it's taking place in the 1800s or the 1900s, the perfect time for like something so Edwardian and Victorian that's taking place. and the characters in the book are really, really nice. So all of them are very beautifully portrayed. They all have different personalities, and you end up liking each of them for different reasons. I know a lot of people who have read this are not gonna like Lucy, or not gonna like Grace, or have mixed feelings about Alistair, but I didn't mind. I don't know, I just didn't mind. I liked everybody in the book. Every character was given so much of depth. There's so much of history behind why everyone is the way they are, and I thought that was brilliant. So purely from like a character point of view, the character development and all that was brilliant, just like any other Cassie book, except Mortal Instruments for me. But it was just amazing. I loved Cordelia. I totally liked James or Jessie or Lucy or anybody that was portrayed in the book. And the story for me was good. So the story is basically that there are a bunch of demons in broad daylight attacking shadow hunters. So this gang of the merry thieves and Lucy and Cordelia investigate who's behind this and what can be done, and then they eventually try and stop the demons. And then there's a lot to the story than what the plot emphasizes. But there were a few things that I thought was a little forced, and one thing was the fact that throughout the book, the merry thieves and Lucy and Cordelia always feel like kids. They've been portrayed as kids. Maybe they are kids, but that's okay, because even in the Dark Artifices, the Blackthorn kids are kids. Even in the Infernal Devices, when Will, Tessa and Jem meet, they're all kids. Well, not like kids, but they're still like 16, 17, 18 odd. So when in Chain of Gold, you see all these kids, they are actually treated as kids, and so there's no like the oomph around what they actually investigate and do. They do a lot of things, to be honest, but it would be nice for them to be recognized for what they do. There is like a chapter where they do get some recognition, but then it feels more like giving an award at the end of a summer term or something, and that just didn't feel right. Because when in the Infernal Devices, when Will and Tessa and Jem, they do something, and they actually have a bunch of things that they face and overcome, there's so much of importance given to that part of their life. Similarly, in the Dark Artifices, when something like that happens, there is a lot of emphasis given and importance given to what they do. And I think even in the Immortal Instruments with Clary and all, there is a lot of importance given to them, but I kind of feel like the importance given to these people are more like kids, and I didn't like that, because they did a lot of things. They need credit. Come on, you guys, give these people credit for what they did. They actually did something huge, and I feel like that was a little bit less in this book. The second thing that I did not like as much in this book is the book took a long time for to get started. If you compare this with like the Dark Artifices, the Infernal Devices, right from like the first chapter, you're deep, you're into the crazy things that's happening in the Shadowhunter world, and there's no coming out of it until you finish the book. Even in the Mortal Instruments, for that matter, right in City of Bones, like in the first few chapters when Clary gets introduced, she starts seeing these Shadowhunters, and then you start getting into their world quickly. But in this book, I felt like it took quite a while, at least like 300 to 400 pages for something to happen. Something did happen, and something keeps happening, but that's just like 2 paras worth of work. And then the rest of the time, we're just getting to live with them and chat with them and talk with them and understand them and get to know them. That's basically what this book does. So I'm thinking that maybe that's because in the following 2 books of this trilogy, there would be like so much more elements that are going to be introduced, and so they wanted us to like understand these characters more before we get there. I'm hoping that's the reason, because otherwise it would just be 400 pages of them talking and us getting to know them, and then like the last 300 pages something actually happens. So that part again I didn't like as much in this book, but having said that, it didn't bother me so much because I liked those characters, and so I didn't mind getting to know them. So I don't know, that's kind of like a contradictory point in some way, but I still kind of enjoyed it. Not as much as I would have liked to, but I still enjoyed it. And then in the last 300 pages, boom, Cassie throws things on your face, and then you're sitting there completely confused, completely emotional, because it's like a mixed feeling that happens in the last, at least in the last 100 pages or so. You feel like crying, you feel angst, you feel anger, you feel pain, you feel hurt, you feel everything. It's like she makes you feel all these things, and there's so much of love and pain and betrayal, and the last 100 pages are to die for, because it's just beautiful. That moment when so many things happen, you don't know how to like feel, because it's crazy. And I thought that was lovely in this book, and so much worth it. I'm so glad that I did enjoy liking this book, and it didn't like throw me off. It was slow, I have to give it that, but if you keep on going, I'm sure you're gonna have a lovely time reading this book. I have already pre-ordered Chain of Iron, so I'm so excited that it's March and it's gonna come out, and I'm gonna read it right away, because I can't like hold on to it for another 1 year like it did Chain of Gold. So yes, do I recommend this book? Yes, I would highly ask you to read it, even if it's your first Shadowhunter book. Definitely, if it's your first Shadowhunter book, it is going to be overwhelming. You are going to be like put right in between so many Shadowhunters, and you don't know what's happening, but you will enjoy it. At least you'll get to understand the world of Shadowhunters, and then you could like pick up the other 2 series as well, which I just recommended. Now, there's one other thing that I also wanted to say was, I know this features Cordelia in the cover, but is she really the main protagonist? I don't know. That was another thing I was a little confused about, because this is Cordelia Carstairs, and I kind of felt like James was like the more of a main protagonist in this book. It's not like someone is like the main protagonist, but then most of the story revolved around James and the Merry Thieves in a way, but there was a lot of Cordelia as well. So I'm not sure what the idea was for Cassie behind this. Is Cordelia going to be our like main character for Chain of Iron and the whole series? I'm not really sure. I guess we'll have to wait and watch. So I'm excited about that though. I guess another quick thing I also wanted to say was that Jesse, that's right, Jesse, I don't know, became like my favorite character. I kind of feel like he was given just the right amount of screen space, and every minute he was portrayed in the book, I was just like clutching my heart and sitting, because he was just so amazing. I think I became a Jesse fan and also a Matthew fan in a way, because I really enjoyed all the Matthew scenes, and his sarcasm and his attitude towards everything was just to die for. I totally enjoyed Matthew as well. So those were like my favorite characters in the book. What I do want to see more of is Matthew. I'm not sure if Jesse will be pictured in the next, the rest of the series. He probably will be, but I'm not sure. So there's so much happening right in the middle of this book, and we're left after this to like wait for Chain of Iron, and I can't wait. So yeah, that is what I thought about Chain of Iron. I was trying to keep this as much as I could spoiler free, because I don't want people who have not read the series before to get thrown off. So yes, definitely recommend this book. Go for it. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you in another video. Bye.